I started my teaching career, I got thrown in the deep end with the BYOD class because I had a little bit of background in technology. I'd worked in an IT firm for about 18 months. And the principal that put me on board was looking to build up a classroom process to roll out to the whole school. That journey took the better part of 3.5 years. And at the end of that 3.5 year period, sort of the end of my sort of 4th year with that school, I moved on. I've changed schools since then, but I still talk to that principal and the other teachers that I was working with, and that process has continued. And is taking on those things that we started and is being really, really successful. So the process we'll go through today, the stuff that we'll look at and I'll talk about, is just basically a set of experiences, things that I've come across, things that I've seen work, the processes that I've gone through with other staff, and had success at all different levels. For people that, you know, started their journey really having the interactive whiteboard at the front of the room, but, you know, using it as a projector, and that was about it. To then going on and using it as a full-blown teaching tool and making it part of their embedded resources within the classroom. So there's a few steps that we'll go through. There's a few steps that we'll go through, a couple of things that I'll sort of talk about and how we can go through those processes. And I will also talk about a couple of things that it can be beneficial to avoid in the outset. Good morning, Aphrodite.
Oh,
can you hear and see us?
Oh dear. Okay, hang on a minute. Hello. Yes, I can. I wasn't able to hear you there for a while, so I'm using 2 devices. So yeah, the computer, for some reason the audio is not working there, so I'm just looking at the computer and speaking to you on the iPad.
Yep, that's fine. Can you see the slideshow that I've got up for everybody as well?
Yes.
Yep, awesome. So yeah, we'll go through that. I'll talk to a number of points and experiences that I've seen, and hopefully, you know, give you a few steps to take if you're looking at embedding digital technologies into your room. I do apologise if you can hear a bit of background. That's my little boy at the moment.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, he wants to be in the room with us, and that won't go too well.
Yes.
So yeah, if I know we're on a bit of a time schedule, so we might get started, and if anybody else comes in, I can go back and cover on some of those topics later on. So today, like I was saying, I'm just going to present a set of experiences about some of the ways we can go into incorporating any sort of digital technologies into the classroom. You could be looking at iPads, Android devices, tablets, laptops, you know, any of your sort of B-bots and all of those aspects. The process is largely the same. While some of their capabilities will be different, what you want to do with them doesn't really change. And there's a method that I've sort of gone through, I've seen work, I've used to help other people embed digital technologies into their classes, that just gives us a little bit of guidance. When I started my journey, I was that beginning teacher lumped with a class of 29 students. Everybody had a digital device, and no one else in the school had any idea about how we were going to go about doing this, other than the principal saying, look, this is what we want, and how you want to go about doing it is kind of up to you. And that was really daunting. That's not something I would ask anybody to go through, particularly when it comes to something that is as varied and as potentially capable and also limiting as digital technology. So when, if I can get this to work, come on now. Here we go. When the start of this year happened, when COVID-19 and all the restrictions and lockdown and everything was going on, Queensland teachers, and from every school that I know people that work at, I've got communication with, everyone was given an impossible timeline to develop this brand new way of working. All of the feedback, the comments, all of the conversations I've had, everybody's done a really good job with what they had in the time that they had. And I don't want to take away from that work at all. What I want to do is give us an opportunity to build upon that. Take what we've started. We were dealt a hand that wasn't particularly conducive, but we've done what we can. Let's take that and build on it, make this something we embed into our learning, bring in those ICT general capabilities in Akara, and start taking that next step. And some of the ways that we saw that happen, I've been part of helping teachers and watching teachers and learning from them in terms of running webinars, setting up and developing pre-recorded learning, giving feedback to a student that you've not seen for 5 weeks on their work in a live environment, creating digital learning platforms in classrooms, and that list kind of goes on. I know a couple of teachers that basically started their own YouTube channel, and that was how they connected with their students. So that shows that we have this wealth of ability to take something that is really difficult and own it and make it our own. And that was happening everywhere. You know, we were looking at a very effective management of home learning and digital technologies all across the state, all of the demographics, all of the sets of experiences, all of the different requirements of students. We made that work as a general staff, as a general organisation of education. So hopefully this will give a little bit of guidance as to where to next. Some people might want to take what they've learned, go back, start again, and redevelop that process. And however you want to approach that, make sure it suits you. These are just a few bits of advice, if I can. And my first one, and this is probably one of the things that really threw me when I was first going through the journey myself. It's not the golden ticket. I don't care what anybody says. And I have had teachers, specialists, very experienced SDLANs tell me, this student's put in your class because you've got BYO. Everybody has a computer. It's not the solution. Having a piece of technology in front of a student just because they have additional needs is not the solution. It needs to be really carefully managed like any other resource that we do. You need to know exactly what you want it to achieve. You need to know exactly how it's going to fit into that particular student's set of capabilities, set of strengths, and in some cases, sets of difficulties. And once you work that out, then you start building a process to provide support for the student. But it's not going to fix their needs. Their needs are going to be there the entire time. This is about creating a bridge and helping them overcome some of those difficulties in a way that is meaningful and they can continue to use throughout education, throughout life. So that's a bit of a premise as to what I would like people to really try and avoid. And just to remember that it's a resource. It's not going to replace a teacher. It's not going to replace good practice. It's going to enhance it. So we'll get from that and go into a bit of a process. The first step I would suggest, if you're looking to bring any sort of digital technology into a classroom, plan ahead. So if you know this is happening in 2021, start it now. But don't start it with the kids getting on. You do it. Okay? Get familiar, make it something you are personally confident with in the way that you want to embed it into the classroom. Okay? Make it part of what you do on a daily basis. And in doing that, in building it into your practice, into your daily routine, you will become more comfortable with it, okay? And that will make those points in times where things fall over, and digital technologies do that quite frequently, unfortunately. When that happens, you then know how to move on. You won't get caught up in, okay, this has gone wrong, I need to fix it so I can keep teaching. It goes wrong, you put it to the side, you keep going on with the lesson anyway, because it's not what the lesson was about. It was there as a tool to enhance it. And that was a learning process that it took me a long time to come to grips with the fact that, hey, I've got this technology here, but it doesn't mean it's got to be everything that this classroom is about. It needs to be something that, yeah, it sits in a cupboard, it sits in their desk. You may not use it for 2 or 3 weeks at a time because it doesn't enhance what you're doing. And then there will be days where you've got digital technology out in front of the kids all day, every day for 2 or 3 weeks because it suits what you're teaching. It suits the pedagogies that you want to implement. And it gives that next phase of learning. It gives that deeper understanding, that deeper connection with what they're doing. And the easiest way to start that process is to do it yourself first. The second part of planning ahead is make that projector, that interactive whiteboard that's at the front of the room, make that an active tool. I see so many classrooms where they've got the projector there, they've got the interactive whiteboard, and the teacher desk is in front of it. A bookshelf is in front of it. You can't get to the desk other than to use it as a screen. That's not what they're there for. And getting past that, trying to work out how to bring this tool into a classroom teaching environment can be really complicated. Because it is largely an unknown, and that's perfectly okay. But use the interactive nature of it. Play around with the software that comes on there. If you don't have a lot of software, get on board with something like OneNote, any of those poster board applications, your digital styluses, things like that. Just slowly bring that into what you do. Rather than picking up a normal whiteboard marker, use the interactive whiteboard marker. Save what you were doing so you can pick it up the next day, a week later, without needing to write everything back up on the board. Okay, make this something that makes your life easier, not harder. You also want to demonstrate how students can use it to complement their work. Model it. Like we do with any teaching and learning cycle, we model the I do part. Digital technology works the same way. It's in a vastly different process, but it's still that same idea. If you're using it meaningfully, if you're using it to enhance what you're able to do, you're taking away the tokenistic nature of having a device in a classroom that's fun. It's their go-to for their reward time. It's their go-to for their free time. And you're making it something that enhances what they do in the classroom every day. And that builds it into your practice before it's even gotten into the classroom. And this is just with the kids seeing you using it. And that gets onto my next point. Okay, you're modeling the use of technology. It becomes a tool, it becomes a resource. It doesn't just become a plaything or a toy or a gimmick. And I will be honest, when I first started this process, it felt tokenistic. It felt like I was doing it because I was told I had to have technology in my room. And it took a long time of trialing different applications, trialing different processes to really overcome that. Sorry, I'm just kind of losing my voice a little bit. And then once you're more familiar with the technology itself, start looking at specific software applications. Start, moving away from using Word to do all of your document presentations. Bring in things like Publisher, PowerPoint as a demonstration of the plethora of resources that we've got that this tool gives us access to, and makes it more meaningful to task. It makes it more professional, you could say. One of the big things I do with my grade 5 students is we will start drafting all of our publications on Word, because that's what it's there for. Build up the bulk of the text. Do all of that work, but sorry. Gotta love end of term colds. So start with Word, because that's what it's there for. But once you've got your text created, once you've got all of your ideas written down, and you're starting to go through the publication phase, use software that was built for it. Use Publisher, because it opens up so much more ability. It opens up so much more cross-curricular thinking, and bringing in a variety of different ways of working and ways of thinking. And it's what it's there for. We go out into the professional environment. We don't just use one app to do this because we're confident with the app. We use all of the tools that are at our fingertips to do a job, not to use the software, if that makes sense. And that further just builds on this technology becoming part of the classroom, not just this thing that I was told to use. Sorry. All right. So plan ahead. Start with yourself first. Don't even look at bringing technology into a classroom until you've had at least a good semester of you using it, you modeling it for the kids, and you making it something that you own. And then once you've built up that confidence in yourself, start small. Start with something that you're strong in. Start with a subject that you take pride in or you really enjoy, a set of skills that you yourself use on a regular basis, and role model that success for the kids. If you, for example, you're a bit of a history buff, start with the research component. Start with building complex reasoning questions, inquiry questions. Do a mind map of all of the sub-questions that we need to, and then look at building a set of resources to help you answer those questions. And demonstrate how research occurs, not just jump on Google, type the question in, and then go, oh, here's my first response. Build up the sequence of events. Build up all of the different skills that are attributed to it, and focus on it with just that unit for that term. Okay, give the students a way of accessing everything, and then the students will start to see it more as a more familiar part of the classroom. They will continue building that connection with it as a tool to support their learning and their work. And so when you go about introducing them to using that technology in potentially the next unit, they know what to expect to do with it. They know that there is a certain goal that they want to achieve when they have this device in front of them. And that will progressively build it into your standard practice that you do every day over and over again. And once you've done that, once you've started with one unit, you've built up that confidence, you've built up that engagement with the technology, then branch off into another one to build confidence in that and progress that way. One of the biggest complications I've seen, I've spoken to other people, I've been involved in other classes where that was the path that they were told to go down as well, is where here's the device, make it part of what you do, use it in everything. It's now part of your teaching process. If you're trying to embed it into absolutely everything you do, it's going to create stress, it's going to create anxieties around what if this doesn't work. It's going to complicate your job to the point that you are likely to resent having the technology in your room before you've seen it actually succeed. And that's where a lot of schools have really run into trouble. They've sort of started down this process. They've got it embedded. They've gone through the equipment purchasing. They've gone through the investment, only to see it fall off and sort of just go by the wayside because people didn't want to connect with it anymore. It was all too hard. And I'm sure yourselves can relate to any sort of resource going down that path. If we're not told to do it progressively, it gets really hard to maintain. So yeah, start small, build your confidence first, and then start bringing in new aspects of technology. And you want to do that in a way that complements what you already do. You know, we are all professional teachers. We are all experienced. We're all confident in the classroom because that's what we're trained to do. Technology isn't going to change that. It's not going to change how you teach. It's not going to change the pedagogies that you use. It's going to enhance it. It's going to give you new opportunities to take those pedagogies to another level. You're going to have the opportunities to extend learning in ways that you couldn't have done before the technology was there. We just need to make sure we approach them from the right angle. And there is an absolute plethora of ways that you can do that. Through using speech-to-text functionality, getting, I can't think of her term now, the one on Apple iPads, Siri, using Siri to note take. That in itself, it's a tiny little step, but it can complement what you do in so many different ways. It's not funny. When I was going through the process of creating this PowerPoint, I actually took a number of notes that I was using, not through Siri because I don't have an Apple, but I've got an Android-based phone. But I was still using that speech-to-text functionality because I was doing other things at the same time. I wanted to make it quick and easy. And that's a really quick and easy way to build it into what you currently do. For example, my first step when I'm implementing technology to a new class, my first step is science. We have an investigation, we take photos, we record all of our anecdotal evidence, but there's not a book or a pencil inside. It's all done through taking a photo, adding an audio file that's attached to that photo that explains what we were seeing. So we can do it very, very quickly. It takes that additional...
Got 3 totally separate computers with 3 totally separate...
Good morning, Bruce. It takes that additional workload of trying to work out how to write all of these things. And it turns it into something students do every day. So they're focusing on what's going on with the investigation at the time and not trying to work out what language to use, trying to work out how to spell that word. All they need to do is record their thoughts in an audio file. And then once the investigation's finished, once we've got all of our documentation, all of our anecdotal results, we then take that back into the classroom and then we get our books out. Headphones get plugged in, the prompts go up on the board, all of the notes start then getting written down using the language that we want to see. You know, pulling words off our vocabulary wall in front of the room. And it takes working load off during the investigation. It takes that mental computation and focuses it where it needs to be. And it gives those opportunities to students who don't always see success because writing is very, very difficult for them. and gives them a means to overcome that difficulty in a way that lets them show where their knowledge is at. And the moment they do that, eyes light up, kids get engaged with it because they're working in a way that they find comfortable. You start that journey, and then it goes on from there. You know, they'll start doing an English report, or they'll start drafting a story, depending on what the English unit is, and they will ask, can I get the iPad, the laptop, the tablet out so I can start recording my thoughts before I go through the writing process? They're no longer seeing the technology as this fun toy. They're seeing it as something that they can personally use to enhance what they're able to do. Once you get that, everything else comes really easy because they're seeing it for what it is. And it also takes a lot of the load off you. It takes that constant need to develop new ways of bringing the technology into the classroom in a way that the kids are going to engage with. And the students start doing that. They start thinking about, how can this device help me? How can I use this to do something I couldn't do before? And that's where deep learning starts. That's where higher order thinking comes in. Because we know what students are like. Some students love to write. That's how they do their thought dump. Other students, if they've got to try and write everything down, they don't want to do that. They don't know enough about spelling or enough about the intricacies of language to accurately get down all of those thoughts so they can come back to it. So they start to drop off. Whereas if they can record their thoughts, if they can do that brain dump in another way, then it gives them a ticket to overcome those anxieties. And there's a wealth of ways that we can do this. We can use speech to text. We can use dictation services for reading certain texts. If they just want to be able to sit, read through, listen to it, have all of those stimuluses going at once so they can connect with it, it's an easy way to bring it in. And there are so many pieces of software that make that even easier today. Make that even easier today. But it's part of Word. It's part of OneNote, Publisher, all of that. You can highlight text, hit the speak button, it reads it out, they read along with it. All of a sudden they're picking up, hang on, I missed a comma here, I missed a capital letter there, a full stop. I've got 2 or 3 words in there that don't actually fit in that part of the text because that's not where I wanted them. But now I know that they're there. I know I've missed them somewhere else. I can take them and move them. I can do that proofreading process in a way that's meaningful. And I did this just last week with my students. We were writing a feature article. I had 3 or 4 kids come up to me saying, look, I've finished typing it. I've got all of my ideas down. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. Can I just print it out and submit it? I go, no. Have you had somebody else read it to you yet? Yeah. It made sense. It was fine. But was it what you wanted to say? And a couple of them looked at me quizzically and they've gone, not entirely. So, got the headphones out, turned the speak functionality on to Word, got them to listen to what they wrote. And look, computers read it very robotically, and that can be off-putting, but it's actually really beneficial because it reads exactly what's on the page. It doesn't read fluently. It reads specifically for punctuation. It reads specifically for the language that you've used. And all of a sudden, the students are listening to it word for word. They're not listening to ideas. They're not listening to what they were trying to write. They're listening to what they actually wrote. And I had one particular student come back to me and go, I'm really glad you made me do that. I found so many things that I wanted to change. I found so many mistakes in there that shouldn't have been there, and went back and changed them. And I'll tell you what, the difference between where that work was to begin with and just that one process, it took them from quite a low C for the actual task And that one process almost brought them up to a B because it took out a whole heap of errors. It worked out that they had used frequent language over and over again. So they started exploring the thesaurus. They started exploring new ways of writing things. And that built more depth really, really quickly. And that builds that enhancing of a learning opportunity into what you do really quickly, really easily once you've started that journey, and in a really, really meaningful way. And one of the things about technology is people often go, oh, that's there to help this student do this. That's there because this particular student has low muscle tone, and the writing process is very difficult. Yes, it does help them with that, but what about everybody else in the classroom? What about everybody else who can benefit from this in exactly the same way? Just because it works and it's there for one particular student doesn't mean it can't be used for everybody else. And once that process starts to go through, this whole range of opportunities opens up really, really quickly, depending on what age group you're working with, depending on what set of tasks you're working with. You will personally see opportunities to bring a piece of software, a specific device, a specific process in that you won't necessarily have seen the first time. Through writing, through history, through maths, it's all there once we build that confidence with it ourselves. And my bottom dot point on this slide, I've got there a variety of strategies can be readily implemented into any classroom. And I mean any classroom. I had a 2-3 class last year, my very first time teaching an early years class. I struggled to get myself into the headspace until I started bringing the iPads in that I had. That gave me a connection that I was confident with. It gave me a way of supporting some of those students that I'd never experienced those sets of skills before. But it gave me a window into their world. It gave me a window into their thinking process that allowed me to provide one-on-one support, to provide one-on-one intervention in a way that helped them straight away. Not only did that help the students, but it helped me connect and learn as well. So it's any classroom, it's any student, no matter what their capability is. If you're using it for your practice, you can use it for their practice as well. And that once you experience that, once you go through that process, you will start to see just how useful this is and just where you can take it in your own environment. And that ties in with our next slide, provide opportunities. Okay, for so long, we've had books, pens, pencils, and that's what we've worked with because that's all we've had access to. As technology is developing at an extremely rapid pace at the moment, things are getting cheaper, more affordable, more readily available, but also more accessible. So start looking at that, play around with it yourself, have a look at what you might be able to do and try it, work with the kids, fail with the kids, let them see that it's okay to try something new and have it not work. I know a number of schools, particularly in the area that I'm working at the moment, are bringing 3D printers in. And they're using it as part of their digital technologies, their design technologies curriculums. They're bringing it into creating models for maths, presentations for English, designing entire environments to suit a narrative text that they're writing, and printing it, giving the students something to work with. And that builds that understanding, that builds that confidence that this is something we can use every day to enhance what we're doing. Look at bringing in professionals, exactly like we're doing today. webinars, Skype calls, Zoom calls, if you can get it through your particular environment, but bring in professionals into the classroom. I didn't personally do this. A colleague of mine set up a series of Skype calls with Dr. Carl Krushelinski with his class to discuss one of their science units. And it made it so much more engaging for the students that everybody connected and everybody built on it. And that it was really, really positive and powerful to watch, not only for the teacher, but for the students as well. And my last stop point there is new methods of providing feedback. You can have, and we all did this during COVID, you know, you can have students working at home that are still working on assessment. They're still working on those teaching and learning processes that we go through in the classroom. All of a sudden, we have ways of making it so we can see their work. We can provide them one-on-one feedback. We can give them advice on what steps to take, what goals to implement, and where to start looking. And we can also get those kids working on a single task, building collaborative efforts, using multiple ways of looking at an idea to create a very encompassed solution. And you can do that through, like we're doing today, with a Zoom chat. You know, Jenny, how many people did we have on the presentation, the keynote presentation? About 190 people signed in for that?
About 214 tops.
214 we got to. So imagine taking those 214 people. We can't put them all in one working space, but we can put them in a digital space. We can build all of that thought process, all of those different ways of looking at a problem to come up with a solution. And you can do that in the classroom as well. Even if all of the students are sitting there, give them a collaborative working space. Use something like OneNote or SharePoint, particularly if you're in an EQ environment. Create one document that everybody works on. You know, give them different aspects to work on in that environment, and they will automatically want to start helping one another. They will want to provide support. They will want to give direction, give feedback, give thoughts in ways that you don't get if they're just writing in their book, if they're just doing this on their own, because they don't see it as a collaborative effort anymore. Whereas you put it electronically, you put it in a space that everybody's actively working, and all of that thought process comes out really, really quickly. And like I was saying before, it's okay if it fails. It's okay if it falls over and does your head in for weeks on end, because what should have been simple just wasn't. Even this morning, Jenny and I started this process. We got the Zoom set up. We were in the middle of a conversation about the keynote speech, and it turned off. It dropped us out. It's going to happen. It doesn't matter what you're using. It doesn't matter if it's Bebot, if it's any of the robotic sets that you've got,
I'm just doing
computers, iPads.
It's okay.
It doesn't matter. It's going to fail. Like any resource, something is going to go wrong eventually, and that's okay. And you know what? If it's such a colossal fail that you don't pick it up again for another 6 months, that's fine. But pick it up and give it another go. You never know when you're going to be spontaneously in one situation, and all of a sudden that process clicks back into your mind and you go, you know what, I've done something and it didn't work there, but it might work here. Give it a go. See what happens. You will be surprised just how powerful that learning process can be, not only for yourself, but also for all the students in the class. And every time you do that, you will refine the process. You will learn something new. You will find a new way of creating a solution that you didn't know was there already. And that is really empowering. That is something that you will take and you will build on, because you get to see and share in those successes with your students. and acknowledge with the kids that some things are out of our control. When I started the process, I had a set of experiences in technology outside of an EQ network. So there were ways that I expected things just to work because that's where they work everywhere else. I implemented that in the classroom, and all of a sudden I hit firewall blocks because of how secure the EQ network needs to be. And that was out of my control. Okay, yes, I know this works, but there's an issue here that we might be able to overcome if we look at it a different way. Find a new path to get that involved in the classroom. And that is going to happen. You are going to do something at home when you're on your network where you've got a very different set of protocols, and it will work really, really well. You'll get to school, you'll try and implement it at school, and you'll hit firewalls, you'll hit blockade. Jenny, can you just have a look at that new participant that's come in and see if you can get any more information than I can? Sorry. So some things are out of our control, some things won't work, but always have a look to see if you can find a way around them. And I cannot say it enough. If it falls over, if it doesn't work the first time, like we need to be with everybody, like with all of our students, with every resource that we implement, we need to be resilient. We need to demonstrate and model that resilience for our students and see if we can problem solve what's going on. Because otherwise all we're going to do is develop that idea that we don't want to use technology, it's too difficult, it's too prone to failure. And as you go through the implementation process, as you start researching how you want to do it in your particular environment, there will be some things that come easily. There will be some things that just absolutely do your head in. But overall, the positives of it will become very, very apparent. They will become very, very powerful. And you will see in varying time periods just how successful it can be. So like anything, resilience and perseverance are going to be that one ticket to making this work for you in your environment. And it does pay off. I can't remember the number of times that I sat down when I was planning lessons in my first 18 months, 2 years of being a teacher in a BYOD class where I just wanted to say, you know what, I don't even want to go down that path anymore. I just want to go back to using books because I know they work. But I'm really glad I didn't. I'm really glad that I did a little bit of extra research. I looked further and I found ways to overcome those problems and work to your strengths. Like anything, like any coaching process we go through, like any skill development process we go through, use what you know and then build upon what you might perceive as your weaknesses by using those strengths and skills. And then you can build them up as well. So where to from this point? You've got that technology, or you've got something you want to do. You've got a new resource to the school, whether it's a set of classroom iPads, whether it's a set of classroom laptops or computers. What's the next step? Obviously, we've all used it, but pick a plan, pick a path. Like I was saying earlier, pick a single subject, a single skill, and work on that and work on that and work on that until it just becomes part of what you do. Okay. And when you're going through that process, consider other potential uses. So in my case, you know, if you're going to go through science the same way I did, as you're going through, think about, you know, you might be halfway through an investigation. What else can I do with this? if it works for this particular investigation in science, is there a research process that we can go through for English? You know, we've got a certain written or reading task coming up. Maybe this will help out there as well. And that will build that process of embedding it into your classroom, not embedding an app or not embedding this single notion that, oh, technology does this for me. Embed technology as a tool that helps everything. And model it, and model failure. Every now and again, deliberately set something up to not work. Use that as a teaching time for students to work out, you know what, I tried to do this, it didn't work. Is there something else I can do? Like we do with anything. Model failure, model how to overcome it. And explore, play around with it. You know, if you've got an extra half an hour on a Thursday afternoon that you might normally use for reward time, if there's something, if there's an app that you want to play with, there's an app that you think might be useful or a piece of software that you think might be useful, just explore, just sit on it for half an hour and get the kids to sit on it for half an hour. Very carefully, supervised of course. But the amount of capabilities that students will find that we don't always think of is absolutely phenomenal. And let them teach you how to do that. It becomes really, really empowering for them, but also for yourselves. So explore, investigate, build that understanding, and then embed it as far as you can into what you do in meaningful ways that you see value to. And one thing to be aware of, I know I spoke about it not being the golden ticket earlier, but one thing to be really, really aware of is avoid allowing reliance. Don't let the students see this as being the bearer of all answers. I'm sure you can connect with, you know, you've done a written task, they type it up, I'm just going to rely on spell check in Word. And all of a sudden they've seen errors, they've gone for the first thing that pops up as the closest word, and the text makes absolutely no sense. The spell checker makes their work worse, not better, because they see the device as being the knower of all answers. You want to avoid that at absolute all costs. So even to the point of turning the likes of spell checker off, turning the likes of the grammar checker off. If you're using OneNote, turn the calculator off. You know, there's an automatic process where you can type the questions into certain software and it will spit out an answer. Doesn't mean it's the right one, but it's going to give you an answer to what you've typed in. And students will just take that as being, well, the technology's got a calculator in it. It must know what it's doing, right? I'm just going to write that answer down. It's not always going to be right. More often than not, it's actually going to be wrong. Technology is not a solution. It's just a piece of the puzzle like any other resource that we use. And yeah, all of that is just a process that you can go through to help bring in new skill sets, to help bring in new aspects of technology into your teaching process. Does it encompass everything? No way in the world. Is it going to always work? No, it won't. There will be some things, like I've said, that you will try and it just won't work and you may not ever know why. But don't let that stop you trying it again. It's a long journey. I started my BYOD implementation almost 6 years ago now. I am still learning new things. I'm still trying new things, even though I've only got about 8 to 12 working computers available to my classroom when they're charged, when they're updated and ready to go. I still implement it where I can, and I'm still learning new things. I've still got students bringing new ideas, new processes to me that they've found that worked for them. And then I get them to teach the other students how to do it. It takes away from just having it sitting in the back corner because we've got to have it there, and the principal or the institution has said we have technology in all of our rooms to be an active part of something you use on a daily basis. Now I know I asked for people to have a device or have something that they would like to bring into their into their classroom or whatever environment you work in, and that was all written before COVID started. But we can still go through that process. So if you've got a device, I think the settings are turned on, so you can unmute yourself, or if you're more comfortable just typing a question in. Let's just have a general chat about technology, about some of your experiences, about what you would like to do with it, and see if we can come up with any solutions that may work particularly for you, or ways that you might be able to bring that in. So Kim, Aphrodite, Jenny, anything coming to mind that you might like to use in the future?
I'm a bit out of the loop these days, Matthew, but I wish you'd been about 10 years ago for me.
Yeah, and I still look at it, still working in education in Queensland, still having my toes sort of dipped into the outside environment as well. We still have our hands tied. There are so many pieces of technology that you can use outside of an EQ network, Zoom being one of them, that we don't have access to in education Queensland, and I believe some private schools are still very, very limited as to what they have as well. That we need to start exploring a little bit more. We need to work out why this isn't active and see what we can bring in ways that is still safe, in ways that still support privacy, but in also in ways that we can really enhance what we're doing.
Matthew, I think often the problem is, you've got your classroom and you're trying to do things, and the classroom next door is a techno wizard, and you're trying to keep up with the techno wizard and nothing's working and everyone's getting frustrating. That was one of the big problems I found. Whereas if I just started small and built on that, it would have worked a lot better for me.
Yeah, and that's why you start with something you're strong with. But also, why is the door shut? If you've got a techno wizard next door, or in your cohort, or even on a different class year level, why is the door shut? Why are we not allowing everybody into our classroom to provide support?
Yeah.
It is, like our keynote presentation was talking about. Anxiety and that unknown is a really big limitation to bringing all of this in. So let's push through it. Let's learn to take that next step to be willing to fail and get somebody else's support and advice, and open the doors.
Kim, did you want to make a comment, or Aphrodite, or whoever the other person is that's joined us? Just press the space bar while you speak or unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah. I find it really helpful having that visual component. It's really good. Matthew, you mentioned about when the students can see the words underlined as they read. Yep. And that's really helpful because it just means everyone can, it is a collaborative thing, but also, well, I can't teach singing at the moment thanks to COVID, but when I did, it was really helpful copying video links up on my program, have it on the board, and I could play the piano for the children and they could sing the words once they could read or hear it that platform that allowed the thing to highlight where we're up to was really helpful, because it meant they were learning the pitch, they were learning where the sound moved up or down, or whether it stayed the same as they were learning the song. And in some cases, I didn't have the being ahead of the students, like you said, get to know it first. I was learning as fast as they were, or behind them. You know what I mean? There were things that they would ask me. So I would say, well, let's check it out, because I only had them for, the choir was 45 minutes a week. So I was just learning on my feet, and it was the best thing for me, because I feel confident to give anything a go. Mind you, I always look to see who's in the room next door who can help me, because I do relief work as well. So I'm not in an everyday situation. It changes on my relief days. And the whole COVID thing really threw me, because I had to set everything up beforehand. I didn't have the idea of being filmed live, because it just wasn't available for everyone at the school. So it's been really helpful. I no longer panic if something goes wrong. I just say the kid's moving along, and they just accept it because they didn't know the music anyway. So that was good. I had that up on. They knew more tech than me. But even little things like my smart TV somehow wouldn't let me into Netflix, and we checked everything out. It's supposed to be a smart TV, but I bought a Chromecast, plugged it in. Now I find I've downloaded Google Home, and it fascinates me that I can say, hi Google, and tell it what I want, and it answers me. You don't have to worry about text. And I was thinking, how great is that if you've got people with limited use of their hands or other problems, that technology gives them a way in.
And
little things like that really inspired me to keep learning as I can. But you know, the irony is I don't have enough app space now to put Netflix on my phone, so I need to get a new phone.
And that is one of the limitations that we come across with digital technology.
It's an old phone, so it's a really good excuse to go and get a new one.
And that never hurts as well. But if you don't mind, if we get back to your personal experience bringing Google Home into your household life, as much as I certainly wouldn't recommend bringing Google Home itself into a classroom.
No, you can't.
Using the likes of Siri, using the speech to text that most tablets have, it's part of Word, part of OneNote, there are parts of Adobe. Bringing that aspect of just being able to, you know, if you don't mind me using the term, use that brain dump. Just get all of your thoughts down before they're organized, so the students can go through, you know, they might be planning a narrative, they might be planning a feature article or a persuasive, but if they can get all of those thoughts clearly and quickly down, then they can start sifting through the information that, you know, maybe that's not relevant here, or maybe this idea is something to really focus on, and they can see it all.
It's very user-friendly.
That process can go to being a 5-minute task, whereas if in some cases a student's asked to write that, it may take them 45 minutes, an hour to get all of their thoughts down. And that immediately brings in that power of technology in a way that's meaningful, in a way that builds competency, and it builds the students' understanding that this is something that enhances and opens opportunities up that maybe they're not used to having.
I think one of the best things the kids like and that I like is the Chromebooks in the school save as you go. So as they type stuff, it's really, because I didn't realise it initially. And I said to the kids, have you saved what you've got? And they said, oh, it already does it, miss. And I thought, that's really great. But it encourages the kids that are less able to know that they don't have to start from scratch each time. And I said, look, everyone's able now because the computer will save it for you. And as you say, they can collaborate together. I can see everyone's work. It's really helpful. And that's been really an eye-opener for me to see not just one-on-one space in a computer, but being able to access everyone. Well, the teacher can, the kids can't. But that's a really good, clever work in technology. And for the kids, it does make it more user-friendly because they can see when they open up the next day or the next week, it's still there.
Yeah.
I
So
say just do a little bit at a time. If that's all you can do, just do what you can and keep working on it. It's a bit like exercising, you know, they now believe that when I say every little bit helps.
yeah, and keep coming back to, you know, you might get to a bit of a hiccup. That's okay. Leave it there. Come back to it
Right.
an
Have
hour,
a
a
break.
day, a week later. That'll give you a fresh set of thoughts. And you were talking about the collaborative aspect there.
Yeah, it's really great.
One of the things that I found really, really powerful, and it's quite easy to implement in any age group, in any environment, and it brings in particularly Microsoft OneNote. Now, I have no affiliation to Microsoft at all, but it brings in aspects of that that are incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
You can set up working documents where you've got multiple students all able to see one another's work, all being able to contribute to ideas, you know, building resources of research information and things like that, that everybody can benefit from.
Yes.
So if you've got somebody, maybe they have a bit of a difficulty in reading comprehension, maybe that's not their strongest point, but all of a sudden they're seeing dot points come in from other people who've done a little bit of reading that might have been a bit more in depth, and they can start bringing those ideas into their work and building that that pride in what they're able to produce.
Yes.
And it does. It supports them in being willing to take the risk, read something new, try something new. And there's people around to support you succeed in doing that.
That's good.
So yeah, it's really good to hear. You've had a couple of opportunities to sort of share where you've been using some of these processes already, and that's excellent. And I really hope that you look at, you know, if you're doing a little bit of relief teaching, if you walk into a classroom where the technology is available, don't be afraid to try and pick it up and take some of those skills that you've used.
The kids tell me if they see me looking at it for more than 2 seconds, this big white thing, they say, I touch this, miss. Or if we want to split the screen, I just say, kids, show me what to do. That's great. It saves me a lot of mucking around, but I remember then.
Yeah, you do. And the students themselves take a lot of pride in that ability to be able to help teachers.
Oh, they do.
You know, my previous school, when I was going through the process of rolling out the BYOD program, you know, the next step was to get other teachers involved and get other classrooms involved in using it. And all of a sudden I had, you know, 24 experts in what we were doing, that if a teacher asked for help, I wouldn't try and talk them through it over the phone. I'd pick 2 students I knew, I trusted, I knew could do the job, and send them down.
Yeah.
And they would go through and do that teaching process. And it built their skill sets, but it also provided more support to the rest of the school as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it becomes really, really powerful once we learn to let go of the fact that, hey, this did fail, but that's okay. We can work with that.
That's right.
Aphrodite, did you want to make a comment?
I also do relief work, actually. So that was interesting to hear that what Kim was saying. So so that's good. How to use technology if you're just walking into a classroom it is not really your technology, it's somebody else's. So it's interesting to hear how, you know, the children experts that can help you. So you've got a whole number of you've got a whole number of children that are there to help, and as you were saying, Matthew, you know, see if you could find 1 or 2 that you think would be beneficial to assist. So that was good. It's good to hear that.
Thank you.
And Aphrodite, when you're doing that, when you're going into a class, you're going to you will see really quickly those students who they're experts. That's what they do. It's what they're confident in, and that will give you a connection to the class really, really quickly too. So yeah, I believe this is all recorded. I'm happy to share the dot points and the PowerPoint with Jenny so she can send it out to everybody through the process that ECTA have got involved. And I'm happy to have my emails shared out as well. So if you're doing something and if you've got any questions, please feel free to flick me an email and I will see if I've got a set of experiences that might be useful or some ideas to overcome those problems. Or even to take the next step in that process as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you very much, everyone. It's been quite interesting actually using Zoom. This is my first time in doing anything on Zoom itself. It seems quite intuitive and quite easy to use. So it's a shame I can't use it in the classroom. But we might see if that changes in the future with the way things are going at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for your time and all your information and all your knowledge. So,
hopefully it's been helpful.
thank you. It has.
Thank you very much, Matthew.